Okay, guys, so let's kick it off with the game week 3 preview. So we're doing it in the same style as last week, starting off with the first game was Nottingham Forest versus Sheffield. Not far off pulling off a win. Awani is in great scoring form. I think this is six in a row that he scored in. Wood coming in with a late goal as well. Looking at the game week though, next game week they have Manchester United. A super tough game. Manchester United going to come red for a win, so I would not advise looking at anyone from that team. But then looking at Sheffield United, they've got Manchester City, both teams at Manchester. I would give these a miss for next week. Looking at the next one of Fulham and Brentford, so Brentford totally dominating. Buemo Wissa, I mean, the entire team is just in top form and still two good game weeks coming ahead. Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. I would back these players completely. We're looking at um, then we're looking at Fulham. Fulham have some tough weeks coming ahead. Arsenal and Manchester City before getting Luton. If you don't have any players in there, again, I wouldn't advise you to go in for any of them. Looking at Liverpool and Bournemouth, so Liverpool getting away with a win, quite a few goals going in, but not convincing. Newcastle next week, this is a crazy game. Newcastle generally and Liverpool have high scoring games, so possibly that a lot of goals will go in, but it is a tough game for a result, so might not consider putting in a Liverpool captain this time. And looking at Bournemouth, they are turning out to be tough journeymen. They're scoring, they're doing a lot of things, but tough game weeks coming up ahead. So again, one to avoid, I would say. Um, then we're looking at Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Brighton. Brighton again, 4-1 second week in a row, really taking advantage. Solly March in top form, Estupiñán, Mitoma. It's just crazy the choices that you have in this team. Still at least one favorable game week against West Ham, who've not been kicking off, but then the trouble starts. So start thinking about transitioning those Brighton players onto the bench or out of the team altogether. Wolves, on the other hand, Everton haven't been scoring, so they might have a sniff this week, but haven't been looking terribly strong. Sarabia is still a great call out from them. Matheus Nunez as well as Cunha if he plays. And then they have Crystal Palace next week, also a good one before going to Liverpool. So just think about that short term. Spurs pulling off not an upset, but at least they're not expected to win against Manchester United. They've got a great run of fixtures coming, and with this 2-0 win, it's a nice boost for them. Really tough to choose players that will excel, though. They've got a team that is very much in transition right now. Sa scored on the weekend from midfield. Richarlison is not really performing as a striker up front. Madison has done well with the assist, but has picked up a knock and possibly will be missing some of these easy game weeks. So just think carefully before selecting Spurs players, but they do have a favorable run coming up. United this week, we spoke about it on the Forest game, they're going to have to win this one if they want to be seriously contending this season. They're going to come in heated, I think, but not really sure whether the result will go their way. If you have Rashford, as four of the people in our league do, possibly keep him in the team, but a chance as captain. Then a tough game week at Arsenal and then Brighton, who have beat them last season as well. So just think carefully on those Manchester United players. Looking at Man City, a very close win against Newcastle, but only if you look at the scoreboard. It was a super competitive game and lots of chances that could have gone in for all the players, including Haaland, but he was not on the score sheet this time. Uh, Pep has been playing Haaland and Alvarez in both the games so far, so a chance for you to score with Alvarez as he did last week. Foden is taking center stage in midfield now that De Bruyne is out for the next 6 months. They're still on a great run of um, fixtures, still another three good game weeks ahead, so keep those Man City players in and possibly look at Akanji as well, who's been starting every game, and Haaland on every game, and otherwise take your picks. Newcastle, their run just continues. Liverpool in game week 3 is not going to be easy, but again, could be high scoring. But then after that, Brighton and Brentford, who have had fantastic starts, so it's not the easiest of games for them. Might have to start looking at their players after game week 5, at least if you're thinking of making some serious points from that team. Looking at Villa versus Everton, Villa just went crazy after their defeat to Newcastle in the first game week. Lots of people on the score sheet. Bailey doing really well. Watkins, Digne, Douglas Lewis, and unfortunately, Um, Diaby didn't get on the score sheet, but he played really, really well. They've got some good game weeks coming up. Burnley, Crystal Palace within them, and one tough one against Liverpool, which might go either way. Everton are struggling to put anything on the scoreboard. Maupe, who's their top striker at this moment in time, or let's say front striker at this moment in time, is really, really struggling. They've got 2 game weeks ahead where they could possibly score, but it's not going to be easy to pick from this team. Looking at the West Ham Chelsea game, West Ham coming with an upset, many might say, but don't forget that these are European champions, even if it's Europa Conference League. But they did lose a few players, but they've come back really, really strong. Crazy game. Jim Ward-Prowse, we called him out as the transfer in and the playmaker. He is a dead ball specialist. His corners and free kicks coming in make him a shoe in for assists. Well worth the money if you want to put him in. But looking at West Ham's fixtures, maybe on the short term right now, and looking for when their fixtures get friendlier, you might really want him on that squad. Lucas Paqueta also scoring, but he might have a lengthy suspension coming up, so might want to be super careful. Ariola picking up um, some good points after making a penalty save against Enzo, but maybe not the first choice keeper in every week. Chelsea had a fairly good game, a lot of chances. Nicholas Jackson, again, unlucky not to score, but he really did play well. The one goal going by Chukwuemeka, but Chelsea have a good run. Luton, Notts Forest, and Bournemouth. You have to assume that they will kick in at some stage. I would back them to put in a few good players there. Enzo's looking solid. Nicholas Jackson is definitely my pick to put in. And then you might want to choose again from the defense. Chilwell is playing in a more advanced fullback position, and he could actually score quite a few goals, as we saw in the first week when he scored the one offside. Then looking at Crystal Palace Arsenal, this was a tight one for Arsenal, so it looks like 1-0 to the Arsenal is back in play. They're taking the games one at a time, but still getting vital points, 2 wins out of 2. Palace never have easy weeks ahead. They've got Brentford coming up next. Might be a bit of a goal fest for Brentford. Then Wolves and then Aston Villa. So not really anyone calling out. Ayu is playing really hard, but again, he's a bit frustrated in that team. Looking at Arsenal, they've got, I mean, Odegaard's playing well, and Nketiah is also playing well. Havertz is not really firing, so people might consider starting to drop him from their teams. He's not really had anything great to do this season, but Saliba is kicking it in defense as well, and Saka is always threatening as well as Martinelli. So quite a few options for Arsenal, and still a few good game weeks ahead of them. Then we didn't have one game this week, which was the Burnley Luton game, and that was postponed, so no results to talk about here. But looking ahead, Burnley still have some tough fixtures coming ahead. But don't forget that they played Manchester United's reserve team or backup team, should I say, with some team players that are first team. So Anthony Martial, Donny van den Beek, etc., in the lineup and beat them 3-0 in a closed door game as a bit of a warm up. So let take from that what you will. And then, of course, we have Luton, who've got Chelsea, West Ham, Fulham coming up ahead. I wouldn't back Luton, but I mean, they did get Tim Krul in. They did get Ross Barkley in, so they might start putting a bit of a challenge to the teams lower down the order. So I just think about that. So since we had one game short, I wanted to just also bring up the fixture rating, looking at the teams for the next 3 weeks that have the friendliest fixtures. Chelsea and Tottenham by far the best lineup for the next 3 weeks, so you might want to consider drafting in players from there. I still wouldn't take anything from Newcastle at this moment in time personally. And for Brighton, I think they've got one more good week, and then we need to start looking at how players can move out because they have some tough game weeks coming up ahead of them. Other than that, I would say Manchester City still good for the money, Brentford as well, and Arsenal, and then just rotate your players to make sure that you're keeping them out of the tough games. But other than that, that's the advice for this week. I hope you guys are still enjoying this, and I'll keep doing it every week. Please leave your comments if there's anything you'd like to see, any new versions you'd like to see. We're coming up on a summer break after the transfer window, and then I'll start bringing out the analytics to let you know how things are progressing. But until then, keep watching, drop us a like, subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notifications.